Y'all caught me in my groove right before I go to the gym. I'm sitting there editing this film. About to go work out. Do some recording. It's 9 o'clock at night. Hopefully nobody's there. Be able to show y'all a little something. See you in a minute. Like I said before, I'm at the gym. Got my blue juice. About to chew on this bar. Right here we got the secret weapon going on up in here. Some of y'all may not know about these TorQ-Kings. You want that real deal? The first exercise here I'm doing is a prone iso. Some people like to call them planks, but actual difference between the plank and the prone iso, in my opinion, and basically what I've been taught, is the plank is pretty much from a push-up position with hands and arms fully extended, and the prone iso is where you're actually planking on your forearms. And a lot of people tend to have problems here in their lower back. So what you want to focus on in this movement is pulling your belly button to your spine. Make sure you create a lot of abdominal pressure and keep your abdominals tight. Otherwise you will have that sag or that curve in your back, and that leads to a lot of back pain or stress in this movement. So a lot of people can't do this for extended periods of time, but this actual exercise I did for 2 minutes. I'm working my way up to 5 minutes. So I've been doing sets of 2 minutes, and I also show you variations of this exercise once it gets easier. And you don't want to necessarily increase the time. You can actually increase other movements like extensions and leg raises, which I'll show you in the next clip. This is also a good starter for your core because it actually increases your overall body temperature through the Isometric Hold. And I like to do this when I get started on my core, just to get myself warmed up for the movements that are going to precede this. Here I show you the prone iso with the arm extension, and which this is just a progression of your basic prone iso. And as you get stronger, you can actually incorporate these, and also it works on some of your shoulder mobility, as you have to raise your arms out straight above your head. And this is your most advanced progression of the prone iso without adding any type of plyometric movements in it, which you can actually incorporate those into that as well, and I'll show you those later on in videos. The next movement I have here is your basic leg raise off the floor. And my ideology of training your abdominals, I like to focus on the lower abdominals first, because those are usually your weakest and the hardest to actually train and focus on. Even though you're not spot reducing or spot focusing on your abdominals, you can intensify where your contractions are. And this is what I like to start out with, is your traditional leg raise. And there are other progressions which I'll show you later on in other videos as well. This move is a floor scissor, which for those of you who may have problems with the double-legged floor raise, you may want to regress to this, which actually helps you build up your abdominal strength so you can do a two-legged raise. And here we have the traditional floor crunch with your knees in a 90 degrees, feet off the floor. And this is going to help you target your abdominals from the top down, working your upper abdominals exclusively, and then isometrically holding your legs up, which is going to help incorporate your hip flexors and your lower abdominals by keeping your feet off the floor and feet into a 90 degree. And you can also regress this by resting your feet on a bench if you can't actually hold your legs up. Here is a side plank, which is typically used to isometrically contract your obliques. And for this, you just go ahead and plank down on one forearm, and then you can either rest your top arm on your hips, or for added balance, raise that arm straight up. And for here, you can actually plank with your feet on top of each other, or if you want to do a regression, if you're not actually strong enough to hold yourself up, you can actually rest on your knees, but still you want to keep that straight line between your body, incorporating your obliques, like I said. And you can hold this for 60 seconds or so. I think I did 60 seconds on each side, since I focused on each side. Now on to the TorQ-Kings. This movement right here can be performed with any type of abdominal wheel if you don't have access to the TorQ-Kings. The reason I like the TorQ-Kings is because they're very functional and you can do a wide variety of exercises. And on this exercise, which is a typical rollout, you just have two access points, two anchor points. You have your knees, and then you also have your wheels. And for this, you want to also maintain a straight spine, incorporating your abdominal wall and also your lower back. and you're just going to lower your chest to the ground and then raise your chest up. You want to try to limit the sway from your hips, pulling yourself up with your butt, and think of just extending your arms out, dropping your chest straight down, and then lifting your chest straight up off the floor, as you can see there. It's almost as if my arms are straight and they're hinging at my shoulders, and just lowering my chest down and raising it straight up without much drag or much hip pull. And this is going to help incorporate your upper abs. Actually, it's going to target your upper abs. Like I said, you can't really just turn off your lower abs when you're focusing on your core, but this is real good for increasing strength in your upper abdominal region. And here we have the TorQ-King functional push-up fly, and which this is actually a hybrid of a few different movements, which you can also see that it's kind of sort of a plank because my arms are straight and my core and everything's tight, back straight. So it's almost like doing a plank while doing a push-up. Then, since the versatility of the TorQ-Kings have the multifunctional wheels, it allows me to go into a fly position, incorporating the major muscles in my upper body, which would be my chest, shoulder mobility, triceps, and also still focusing on mostly upper abdominals, but also still having to keep my core tight throughout the whole movement. This is somewhat of an advanced movement, but takes a little bit of balancing and upper body strength to execute these. And the regression to this would be doing this on your knees, and depending on what type of devices you have, if you have wheels, you can actually turn them sideways and do a fly motion, and you can start with your knees and then progress to doing it full tilt with your just your toes, or doing it on your toes. This clip I actually lost the audio. I don't know what happened, but it's pretty much me hype manning myself up for the next movement and telling you how good this gum that I'm chewing is gonna be. And also, if I don't execute this, I was gonna show you anyway, which I haven't done it in a while, and it's kind of a advanced move, and if I bust my ass, I was just telling y'all, don't laugh, keep watching, it gets easier. But this is all it was.
Yeah, alright, he gonna bust his ass.
This movement really has no name. It's just a standing rollout to a push-up fly, something I created, just bored and had the equipment to do so, and just wanted to challenge myself. And I'll explain to you exactly what you have to focus on in this movement.
Damn!
Now that I've cracked myself up, add a little comedic humor to this. Basically, this move is going to help you stretch your quads. As you can see, you have to have some flexibility to come all the way up to the top. And also, you're still engaging your core through an isometric hold, and then you're rolling out and then incorporating the large muscles and larger muscle groups in your upper body, and also having to work on shoulder stability and also generating force from an unstable environment, which is going to help you burn more calories and also increase your strength gains. And as you can see, the push-up, as I fly out at the bottom, I drop my chest down and then push myself back up into the fly. And more of my inner hype man.
Oh man, I knew you was gonna get that, man. That's hella tight, man. You got skills, man. I knew you was gonna do it, no doubt. Man, please. Next.
Next, I moved into a trunk rotation with a straight bar, and I'm doing it from a kneeling position. Basically on this, what you want to do is I always activate and squeeze my glutes to limit my trunk movement and lower movement. And I also focus on just moving my upper body and my upper trunk, swinging from side to side in a controlled motion. I'm trying to get a nice contraction as I reach each side before I return to the other side. And all along trying to limit my hip involvement. A lot of people do these and they just pretty much swing their hips and they're rocking from their knees. And as you can see, I kind of try to keep my legs and thighs as straight and as isometrically contracted as possible to enforce and increase the stress on my obliques and the tension on my obliques. And I do this for typically about a minute non-stop. When I focus on my core, I like to balance myself out because I don't want to have very strong abdominals and weak erectors in my back, lower back, and things of that nature, because it also sets you up for risk when you're using movements that require your overall body bracing itself throughout the movement, which are typical in your back squats, deadlifts, and predominantly any standing movement where you're incorporating or moving weight around. So this was hyperextension. I did a few warm-ups without the weight. Then I did a 45 plate wrapped around my chest. On here I'm focusing and emphasizing the squeeze and stretch in my hamstrings and the squeeze in my lower back on the way up. So go ahead and give this a try whenever you're incorporating your abdominals. Don't neglect any part of your body. Since we're out in the gym, I can swing around like a little kid. I did some hanging knee raises, double knee raises, which is typically going to help emphasize your abdominals from the waist down, I guess from the lower abdominals. And basically a progression for this would be moving into a weighted knee raise, which for this I used a dip belt, and I added 45 pounds to my thighs, which is going to increase the tension placed on my abdominals. And I typically do about 15 on these, and you want to try to limit the swing whenever you're doing any hanging motion, because you want to limit the momentum and actually work on the contraction of the muscles. Next movement is your oblique cable rotations, and the setup on this is pretty basic and self-explanatory. Brace your core, interlock your hands on one grip, extend your arms as fully extended away from your body, and then you want to rotate completely to the opposite side as far as your range allows you without engaging in your hip movement, and making all the movement created and controlled throughout your trunk. And ideally on this I do about 15 each side. You don't need a lot of weight because you don't want to build thickness in your obliques, you just want to kind of burn them and tone them. And then after you do one side, you can either flip around and face the other direction, or in this case just grab the other handle, and the same setup, you're just rotating to the other side. Since this is a unilateral movement and you're working one side at a time, you can really focus and intensify the squeeze, but you want to make sure you're balanced and do the same amount on each side. And like I said, when it comes to bracing the core, all that really means is you want to squeeze your abdominals as tight as possible and blow air out as you're contracting. So envision pulling your belly button as close as possible to your spine as you're creating the movement and blowing the air out. And when you're coming back to a resting phase, you want to inhale as much air as possible without losing that tension. Here we are at the Roman chair. This is where you can regress from the hanging knee raise, which I did earlier with the weights and everything. You also incorporate weights, but if you're not strong enough to hold your upper body up while you're pulling your knees up, this is a good regression until you're strong enough to do so with your upper body, or just have the abdominal strength to do so. And here I did a variation of a double knee raise to straight leg raise. And like I said, once you get comfortable here and get strong enough, you can actually translate this over to the hanging knee raise and the straight leg raise. And then also you can do it in alternating leg fashion if the straight leg raise is a little too much stress on your back, or if you're just not strong enough to handle the movement. Both of them are very effective in focusing on your lower abdominals. Once again, I like to state, since you can't separate your abdominals, it just focuses the emphasis on the lower portion of your abdominals. And this is another movement you can actually use, which is a decline double leg raise. And for this, the setup is basic. You hop on a decline bench and reverse hold the grips, and your legs are starting from the bottom, and you're going to raise them up to a perpendicular position. And then from there you can actually regress that to a crunch, which is a decline crunch, which you're actually starting your legs in the same position but pulling your knees to your chest. And you want to try to bring your hips off the mat just to incorporate that squeeze in that lower abdominal region.